Hi, let's talk about Madness Orc. And as usual, my disclaimer, I'm not an expert on any of this stuff. I'm just a guy that plays Tor a lot, he's kind of a turbo nerd, and knows the basics of what he's doing. So let's hop into it. Madness Orc kind of has a bad reputation because it's not Lightning Sorc. Lightning Sorc is very good right now, so people kind of dunk on Madness Sorc as not being a good spec. They're right in that it's not as good as Lightning. However, it's a much simpler spec. It does a decent amount of damage, which is perfectly serviceable. It has some good self-heals, and it has range, which is very important. So I'd say it's a good spec, and a great spec to learn if you're just getting into Tor. A very simple rotation that we're going to walk through. Not a lot of tricks, very straightforward, and so let's get right into it. The first abilities that we're going to talk about are not actually damaging abilities. They are going to be our damage buffs. Those are going to be our Polarity Shift. Polarity Shift gives you 20% extra Alacrity and gives you an immunity to interrupts and pushbacks, which is very nice. However, because of our set bonus, it's actually going to do a lot more damage. That's because our set bonus is letting our force attacks deal 20% more damage while our Polarity Shift is active. Very, very important to be pumping a lot of damage during those Polarity Shift windows. So we want to be getting off as many Polarity Shifts as possible. Fortunately, because of our set bonus, we're able to get more Polarity Shifts because every time you use Force Speed, our Polarity Shift cooldown is going to decrease by 5 seconds. So that means we want to be using Polarity Shift, which is this glowing hand right here, and Force Speed, which is this guy moving very fast, as often as possible. All right, now that we've covered those two basics, there's one final bonus that we want to be using here. It's called Recklessness. Recklessness is going to give us increased chance to do critical damage with our Force abilities. Very nice. It's just free crits. So it doesn't really line up with the other two abilities as well. However, it's free damage, so we just basically want to be using it on cooldown with a couple of our abilities that we talk about in a hot second. So let's talk about the abilities here that we need to be focusing on. Madness is a dot spec, which means that we want to be applying dots to the target, which we will then use to slowly chip away the target's health over time. The primary dots we're going to be looking at are Creeping Terror and Affliction. They both do about 20,000 damage over the course of 18 seconds. Creeping Terror has the benefit of doing an extra root for 2 seconds, which is very nice for keeping those pesky melees from getting to us. And it's free damage over the course of 20 seconds. Now, it's not a lot of damage all at once. However, over the course of an entire fight, it's going to add up very quickly. There is a third dot that we will talk about in a hot second here, but let's walk through the rest of the rotation before we get there. So, if we apply our dots to the target here, we can then apply our Death Field. Death Field is going to do a couple things. First, it's going to leave this death mark on the target. You can see as the dots are ticking, this death mark is going down because our death mark is increasing the damage of our dots by about 15%, which is very, very handy. You can see here is the death mark. It places 15 stacks of these little skull people on our target and then makes our dots do an increased amount of damage. Very nice, free extra damage. It also spreads our dots. This is our only way of spreading dots without manually reapplying dots to different targets. So if you apply your dots to this target and then you hit more than one character with your Death Field, it's going to spread your dots to all those different targets. It's very difficult to spread dots in Madness unless your targets are cooperating with you. So if you have in PvE a tank that's pulling all the mobs together, it's going to be very easy to spread your dots. In PvP, it's a little more tricky. You might have to aim your AoE a little bit more. However, if you're not really caring about dot spreading, you're kind of focusing on one target, what you can do that a lot of people don't realize is that if you are trying to use an AoE ability, you don't actually have to aim it and click it. So you don't have to be going around like this. If you just double click the ability, it'll instantly cast on that target. So you don't have to be manually aiming. You can literally just double click, boop, and now my AoE is casting primarily on my target. So again, that's applying our dots, and then Death Field. The next ability we're going to be using is Force Leech. Force Leech does a moderate amount of damage and then heals us for all the damage that it does. It's free damage and free healing. It's not a great amount of damage overall, but if it's in our rotation and it's our primary big chunk of damage that we take out of people, you'll notice that in Madness, we're not really taking huge chunks out of people. It's a lot of very chippy damage. So it comes after our Death Field. So that is basically part one of our rotation. Part one of rotation is Creeping Terror, Affliction, Death Field, and Force Leech. That's part one. Part 2 is where we get into a couple more of the interactions of how different abilities interact with each other. What you're going to notice is if you cast Force Lightning here, you're going to be building a couple of stacks of Funneling Current and Wrath. When you build 4 of these stacks, you're going to see that your Demolish and your Lightning Strike are going to start to glow. That's because you can now instantly cast any of these abilities for free. So again, once you have built 4 stacks with Wrath, these 2 abilities will start to glow. Now, if you don't have high accuracy or the target resists a tick of your Force Lightning, you're not going to build your 4 stacks over the course of the cast. So it's something to be watching out for. Sometimes the target will resist or go immune, so you're going to have to adjust on the fly as it goes. How the rotation relates to each other in the second half is going to be casting a Force Lightning first, then a Lightning Strike, then 2 Force Lightnings, 1, 2, then Demolish. Now you may be asking yourself, but Biggs, doesn't Demolish actually come off a cooldown before the second cast of Force Lightning ends? Why would you ever do that? I hear you. And the reason is because of our tactical that we're taking, which is called Tempest of Ro, which is going to be taking our Creeping Force every time Force Lightning does damage, and because the rotation is not smooth without double casting Force Lightning. If you're not double casting Force Lightning, you're going to run into a space where you have like a half a second of not clicking anything. So you're really making a long-term investment in the smoothness of your rotation by casting Force Lightning twice. So again, phase 2 of our rotation is Force Lightning, Lightning Strike, Force Lightning, Demolish. So now let's loop that all back together one more time. When you actually open a fight, you can pre-cast Demolish here, since it's the last part of our first rotation. We don't really want to be hard casting Demolish because it has a monstrous 2-second casting time, so not really what we're looking for in terms of in combat. However, if the tank is like, hey, I'm going to pull in 3, 2, 1, start to cast Demolish, and now dot. We're going to spend all of our damage increasing, Death Mark, Leech, Force Lightning until we build 4 stacks. Now, because Polarity Shift is increasing our Alacrity, we're actually going to cast a trio of Force Lightnings here, and then back into our regular rotation. We're going to be spending our Force Speed as much as possible. Force Speed actually gives us a buff where the next ability we cast after Force Speed does an increased amount of damage. So we want to be using that with Force Leech as much as possible. However, with the way that rotation works, it's usually going to end up where you're just kind of casting it on cooldown instead. We'd rather have more polarity shifts than more damage done with our specifically higher hitting abilities, right? So again, phase 1, dot, Death Field, Force Leech, Force Lightning, Lightning Strike, Force Lightning, Demolish, dot. Phase 1, dot, Death Field, Leech, phase 2, Lightning, Strike. Oh, you can see here I didn't build my 4 stacks. So, if you did not get your 4 stacks built for your Force Lightning, do not cancel your cast of Force Lightning. It is better to sit there and finish the hard cast of 1.5 seconds because how the GCDs work is when you begin to cast an ability, all of your other abilities are unusable for 1.5 seconds. And you'll remember, the cast of Lightning Strike is a 1.5 second GCD. So it's better just to sit and eat the extra 1.5 seconds of killed time by not having the instant cast of Lightning Strike, by sitting and finishing out the cast instead of trying to like cancel the cast by moving and then trying to cast Lightning again. Just eat the L and then you'll build stacks for Demolish next. That's also one of the benefits of casting 2 Force Lightnings in a row, is that you're not going to miss more than 50% of your Lightnings here. You're always going to get your 4 stacks of Wrath by the time those 2 Lightnings finish. Because we really need those instant cast Demolish. We don't really need the instant cast of Force Lightning. It's nice, but unnecessary. So if you can master these 2 phases of the rotation, it's all going to flow very nicely together. And then what I would recommend is sitting in front of a target dummy and just practicing spending your Force Speed as fast as possible, getting polarity shifts up as fast as possible. You're going to want to spend your Recklessness with Death Field and Force Leech because those are our 2 hardest hitting abilities. And if you can get an AoE Death Field with Recklessness on it, you're going to do a monstrous amount of damage. Let's talk a little bit about our tactical we're taking here. We talked about the Gathering Storm set bonus, which is pretty necessary if you want to be doing big damage. The tactical that we're going to be using on single target is going to be Tempest of Row. What this means is that every time you cast Force or Lightning Strike, you're going to trigger your Creeping Terror, and every time you take damage with Force Lightning, your Creeping Terror has a 50% chance of taking as well. So what this means is that you're going to be doing extra single target damage with your Creeping Terror because you're using your second half of your abilities, right? So it's free damage all the time that's built into your rotation. Very tasty. There is a second option, though, for AoE damage. You'll notice that we don't have a lot of built-in AoE when it comes to Madness Sorc unless we are rocking the Slow Mercy Tactical. Slow Mercy is a different type of tactical where it spreads your slow, and then what it will do is if you hit a target with Death Mark on it, it is going to spread your Demolish to all the different targets. Demolish is not usually spread by your Death Mark or your Death Field as it is, so this is the way we can get Demolish rolling on a bunch of targets at once, and then additionally, your Force Storm is going to be doing extra damage to any target affected by our Death Mark. This is going to change up our rotation a little bit, so you're not going to have first half of rotation, second half rotation anymore. You're really focusing on taking advantage of your Demolish spreads and Force Lightning targets that have Death Mark on it. So the new rotation for AoE is going to look something like this. Apply your dots, dot, and then apply your Death Field, get your free stack of Demolish, and now we're just going to cast Force Lightning until we run out of Death Marks on the target. Death Mark, we're out of that, so then cast Force Leash to fill, and then we're back into our regular rotation of dot, Death Mark, Lightning, Demolish, and then Force Storming until we run out of Death Marks here. It's a little bit clunkier, however, it does still all flow together. So dot, Death Field, Lightning, Demolish, and Storm until we run out of stacks. This is much more handy for like big AoE pulls in PvE. It can be useful in tighter situations like Odessa Warzone where everyone is forced to come into the same node. However, for the most part in PvP, I actually like to run the Tempest of Row. Madness's main problem is that it doesn't have a lot of killing power. And by that, I mean there's no way to really effectively take a target down from 20% health to 0% health. You can chip away damage as much as you like, but there's no final big push. And so by having Creeping Terror taking a lot more, it's going to give you that resemblance of extra burst damage in your rotation. Now we're going to come to the part where everyone's going to argue in the comments section about what the best utilities are to take. This is a very good problem that Sorc has. A lot of the classes have some very questionable utilities. However, Sorc has a situation where your different utilities are going to differ based on the type of content that you're running. So let's talk about the ones that are good. We'll ignore the ones that are bad. First of all, Sith Defiance and Empty Body are pretty much mandatory. It's going to give you extra DR, and then it's going to help your healers keep you alive in all forms of content, which is very, very important. Now we come to a part where we're going to argue. I take Torturous Tactics here because it helps lower the cooldown of my Electrocute, which makes me able to CC targets more. And then afterwards, they actually do 25% less damage for 10 seconds, which if you take that over like a PT's burst window, that means they're not going to be doing 100k damage and they're only be doing 75k damage. So I really like this tactic or utility. However, in PvE situations, it's not going to be useful. It's going to be actually rather useless. So instead, you probably want to take Tempest Mastery instead, so you get the extra damage done by Force Storm. Or if you're in like an Odessa Warzone, you're going to be Force Storming all the time, so you'd be running that AoE rotation. You can take Tempest Mastery as well. Now people are going to get more angry because 2 of these are necessary, and then a bunch are really good. Suppression is pretty much mandatory. This is our only main DCD that we have, and it causes our Cloud Mind to grant suppression, which increases our DR by 25% for 6 seconds. It's basically our only DCD that we have, so pretty important, very nice utility. And then we have Surging Speed, which is going to reduce the cooldown of Force Speed by 5 seconds. Again, Force Speed is going to be giving us more polarity shifts. More polarity shifts equal more damage, so more Force Speed equals more polarity shifts equals more damage. So you want to be running these 2 pretty much all the time, no exceptions. Now people are going to argue because there are a couple of very, very good options here. For one, Conspiring Force is very useful, especially in PvP content, because you can be applying your Affliction to every single target you come across and just slowing them for 30% for 20 seconds, which is crazy. And then if you spread Affliction to a bunch of targets with your Death Field, you're going to be slowing potentially an entire team by 30% for 20 seconds. Very nice. Additionally, there's going to be Lightning Barrier, which is very nice in like PvE content, where every time you are hit, you're going to do a free 10k damage. There's not a lot of utilities out there in the game that are going to be giving you free damage, so this is very nice, especially in PvE content. It can be nice in PvP as well. However, there are other options that are perfectly viable. For example, Instant Whirlwind. This is a classic in PvP, but completely ignored in PvE pretty much. It's going to give you a free instant whirlwind, so you no longer have the 2-second cast time. You just boop, pop it, and then they go lift into the air. And then it also gives them an extra 2 seconds to stun if they break it early. So it's very nice in PvP, but not as useful in PvE. Moving on down the list here, again, arguments in the comments. Immersion is what I like to use for PvP because it gives me essentially a mini hydraulic override every 15 seconds, which is very nice for cutting like melee DPS. And then I like to run Shapewish Spirit because people die in stuns a lot in PvP. And so by having the extra 30% DR when you're CC'd, very nice. And it's also very useful in PvE because a lot of PvE damage is AoE based. And if you accidentally stand in stupid and you can take 30% less damage from that, very handy. However, there are arguments to be made for Corrupted Barrier, especially in content where you're not going to be focused down as much. You can get some free healing. However, because of the abilities that we have in Madness, where we're going to be self-healing with our dots, you can see here every time our dots tick, we're going to be healing for 10% of the damage done. It's not a great amount of healing, but it is some. And then our free healing from our Death Field and our free healing from our Leech, we kind of have enough self-healing built into our kit that we don't need the extra self-healing of Corrupted Barrier. However, there is the argument to be made of if I Force Barrier, you're going to get a bunch of free healing. So it's pretty good. You're going to get free healing every time you cast Force Barrier. Pretty nice. Additionally, some people take Unnatural Vigor, which is essentially an extra cooldown. 50% DR every time you cast Unnatural Preservation, and then it reduces the cooldown by 5 seconds. Very nice. You can absolutely take this tactical or utility, and I would not be upset with you. Additionally, in PvE especially, I see a lot of people taking Force Mobility. You're going to notice that Madness is a very static spec. You're kind of stuck here casting Force Lightning for a long period of time. And so having the extra mobility provided by Force Mobility to cast Leech on the move is very handy. However, I find that we're kind of turreted as it is when it comes to PvP, and I'd rather have the extra Root Break of Immersion than I would for the Force Mobility. That's just me. I've also seen the argument for Shifting Silhouette, which is essentially another DR. In my opinion, Shifting Silhouette can be negated by good phase walk placement. You know, it gives you an advantage for 10 seconds. However, if you place your phase walk behind a corner or where they're not going to find you, they're already not going to be able to hunt you down for like 6 seconds. So I'd rather take the other utilities compared to those. However, you can take whatever utilities you want with SWTOR. Again, it's one of the rare specs where if you are running a certain utility, there's arguments can be made for one or the other, but you have options. So feel free to absolutely do whatever you want with those. Wrapping it all together, Madness SWTOR is a very dot-heavy spec. It's not that hard. Again, the rotation is just phase 1. Apply dots, Death Field, Leech, that's phase 1. Phase 2, Lightning, Force Strike, Lightning, Demolish, and it's a very smooth rotation from there. I would absolutely recommend sitting down and practicing on a dummy with this, and then just rolling from there. I'm going to go hop into a PvP match and hopefully show off what you kind of can expect in a regs game, and then hopefully describe a little bit more of what we're actually doing and why we're doing it. I will post actual stats down in the description below if you're trying to min-max. This can be pulled from the Theory Crafters Discord. So that's what they run. That's what I recommend. So without that, I'll see you in the next PvP match. 2 seconds. While we sit here and wait for a pop, let's talk about some of our DCDs. The main DCD we have is going to be our Cloud Mine, which is going to be our 25% DR for 6 seconds, which is very nice when it comes to getting bursted on, or if you're going to get hit by an AoE that you're not going to be able to get out of. Pop that Cloud Mine, get that 25% DR and help your heroes out. The next is going to be our Phase Walk and our Static Barrier. You're going to see if we apply our Static Barrier, it's going to absorb about 20k damage to us, but we can only apply it once every 20 seconds. Once this deionized barrier debuff goes away, we can reapply a barrier to ourselves. Very handy. Finally, we have our phase walk. Range is pretty much our biggest DCD. If their melee isn't on us, they can't be channeling into us, which is obviously very nice. And so what you can do is if you set down phase walk and then you can run about 60 meters away, you can re-toggle this phase walk at any time for the next 10 minutes and then be instantly teleported back over to where you set down your phase walk. This is very good in PvE when it comes to like managing mechanics without having to run everywhere. Or in PvP, if you set down your phase walk like back behind the walls of a hypergate, or setting it somewhere where the enemy team is going to find you for a significant amount of time, so you can heal yourself up and get back into the fight. We also have our force barrier. Force barrier is the FU barrier that you pop it and then you don't move and don't take any damage for the next 8 seconds, which is very nice, but you're kind of just stuck there doing nothing, so you better hope you have a healer out there healing you, or you better hope that your dots start taking overdrive to heal you just that little extra bit during your barrier, or hopefully the enemy team just gets bored and starts channeling on someone else. So that's kind of the big hope. Other than that, just keep it ranged as much as possible, and you'll be good. Oh, speak the devil. Here's a pop. Let's roll. All right, we got an arena. Great. Well, let's see how it goes. Hopefully, it'll be a chance to show off some of the tricks of the trade. We're gonna do the phase walk juke with any luck. We'll see how it goes. Looks like this healer is running an endurance stand, which is interesting. We're probably gonna tunnel heal and then Sork here. Kind of a rough matchup for us. I'm expecting to get absolutely dunked on. However, it looks like they might be targeting our low-level mercenary here. So maybe, just maybe, might be able to do some shenanigans. So let's get rolling here. Dot, spend everything. And now begin our rotation. It looks like they really want our gunslinger, who is standing right in the middle of everyone. We're gonna knock some of these, no, I stand correctly, we're gonna knock none of these lads off. So we're gonna dot, and then, oh, nutty dot spread. Keep on him. Gonna CC up this Sork. Oh, we're so close. All right, we are, nice, we got the healer. I'm gonna sit down here and heal a little bit, because they had the audacity to net me. How rude. All right, we're gonna be back in the rotation here. Interrupt that force blast, because as we learned from our lightning Sork, we need to interrupt that as much as possible. Applying back down some of our dots here. This is fine because we have the 20% DR during this. We're gonna actually straight up whirlwind this guy and let him run away. Back into the rotation. Death Field, Leech, Lightning, Demolish, dots. I might have bunked a little bit here. However, oh, he's gonna barrier. Oh, never mind. He's gonna be back in the game immediately, which is all fine. We're gonna actually bubble this guy and give him a little bit the off heals, because we do not want that guy to be in any sort of trouble. Let's hit this. I just interrupted something that wasn't needed to be interrupted. That's totally fine. I'm just gonna stop down here and heal this guy up, make sure he doesn't die. And now back to the dots. Root. Prepare the bonk. Bonk is engaged. Repeat, bonk is engaged. Whatever bonk we can say we have as madness. There we go. Worked out. It's very nice when they all stack up very nicely for us. You can see here we do a moderate amount of damage. Take that, Lightning Sorks. Just kidding, that Lightning Sork didn't have the chance to cast as much as I did because he died. Which means that you don't do damage when you're dead. So I think we're going to do the same thing here. We're going to tunnel this mercenary. It appears he was using a blue stem instead of a purple stem, which means that he is not going to keep his stem throughout when he dies, which is a darn shame for him. We'll see if he pops another one. All right, let's see what we can do. Make some magic happen. Our phase walk is still down here. Our phase walk persists through rounds if you don't die. So we will see who these guys feel like going on. They might go on me. However, it doesn't look like they want to. So instead, bonk, bonk. If this guy wants to be left alone back here, we will happily free cast on him. And hopefully he's going to run to all of his friends so I can spread the joy of dots to him. However, for now, it looks like he just wants to sit around. Oh yes, share your dots with your friends. That's what friends do. I'm gonna break this just so I can get back into casting here. We almost have this guy. If he has reflect back up, that's perfectly fine. Never mind, we got him with the dots. Easy peasy. Now we're gonna come up here and do a little razzle dazzle. These guys really want our mercenary, which is fine. Actually, you know what? It looks like they're actually kind of leaving him alone right now. So now what we can do, just yoink, surprise pool. And now he can sit down there, be perfectly fine. We free cast into these lads. Hold up. We cannot let our gunslinger die. Give him the bubble. Never mind, he's gonna die. Okay, that's not good at all. We're gonna sit on this Sork instead. Never mind, he's gonna get away. We'll go on this commando because he is alone instead of all of his friends. And I'm wondering how many more DCDs he has. I don't know how far we've gotten through him here. It doesn't look like enough. There we go. I'm gonna bubble. I'm gonna just keep bubbling our lad here. But now we have all of our stuff back. We can really pump some damage into this guy. He has his cold toe running, and you can see our dots are still just straight ticking through him. I'm gonna CC this guy and hopefully buy our team some time to get back in the action here. I'm gonna get back on this mercenary. I know that the Sork is gonna do more damage. However, I think this mercenary is out of options. Bubble this guy. He's popped Life Warden like a champion, so he's gonna live, and this mercenary is gonna die. And now we pump the last of the damage into this poor lad right here. I'm spending Demolish earlier right now just because I know we're not going to be casting long term, so I can kind of break the rotation. And there we go. Interesting match. We had some good free casting going on. But other than that, we pumped for our team. And our guys, they did enough to survive long enough for us to just chew through with our big, fat dots. And hopefully that's going to make this very long video a little bit shorter. So that's the basics of Madness Sork. You want to be pumping out your Creeping Terror, Affliction, Death Field, Force Leech. Again, phase 1. Phase 2, Lightning, Strike, Lightning, Lightning, Demolish. If you can get the base of that down, you're going to be perfectly fine doing some decent damage. And that is it. Hope you guys have a great day. If you have any questions, leave them in the comments. I'm going to put some guides down in the comments too that can explain in much greater detail what to do with Madness Sork. Bye now.